Stepping into a time machine and landing in 1969 would reveal a jaw-dropping sight, not a random desert but a dry and barren Niagara Falls. This remarkable event unfolded during the summer and fall of that year, a deliberate act to allow researchers to examine the rock face of the falls. The concern driving this decision was the potential instability of the falls due to erosion. Erosion, a natural process driven by forces like water and wind, wears away earthly materials. To put it simply, when you see glacial ice turning muddy, erosion is at play. Niagara Falls, a natural wonder straddling the border between Canada and the United States, comprises three waterfalls: the Horseshoe Falls, the American Falls, and the Bridal Veil Falls. The American Falls are entirely on the American side, while the Horseshoe Falls dominate the Canadian side, separated by Goat Island. The smallest, the Bridal Veil Falls, sits on the American side, isolated by Luna Island. Nature's cool way of creating a border between America and Canada, right? Many doubted our ability to tamper with the force of nature and stop the overwhelming cascade of water. However, a 600-foot dam was constructed across the mighty Niagara River to achieve this feat. This colossal engineering effort required diverting an astounding 60,000 gallons of water per second. The excess flow was then redirected over the largest Horseshoe Falls, exclusively on the Canadian side. The construction of the dam involved over 27,000 tons of rock, transported by more than 1,000 trucks. On June 12, 1969, the American Falls ceased their continuous flow for the first time in over 12,000 years. The Horseshoe Falls absorbed the additional flow, providing researchers with an opportunity to conduct essential studies. Despite the scientific intent, locals couldn't shake off their worries. Controlling such massive water volumes raised fears of unintended consequences, especially the possibility of a catastrophic flood taking a different route. Picture this scenario: folks thought tourists would vanish if the teams failed to revive the waterfall to its former glory. But surprise, surprise. Even in that summer, tourists flocked in, snagging a rare chance to witness something unprecedented. Imagine a makeshift walkway just 20 feet from the edge of the now bone-dry falls. It aided workers in tidying up the former river bottom, giving tourists a ticket to explore the wild side of the falls, typically submerged and strictly off-limits. While navigating the dried falls, researchers stumbled upon millions of coins, people tossing them in, perhaps for wishes or who knows what. A Niagara Falls piggy bank, right? They cleaned up most of those coins. I'm left wondering who hit the jackpot. Over the past couple of decades, more and more tourists have been drawn here. Picture the discoveries: more coins, misplaced cameras, Eric drones, cell phones, and other items careless visitors accidentally bid farewell to in the waterfalls. Now, wrap your head around this wild notion: draining all the water and transforming Niagara Falls into a desert. Can you believe it worked? Back in 2020, the media buzzed about the two pedestrian bridges in Niagara Falls needing a makeover. No surprise, considering they're almost 120 years old. These bridges hang above the rapids. Experts debated whether to redirect the water once again or not. Niagara Falls has its share of chatter. Some folks swear it's up there with the world's loftiest waterfalls. Spoiler alert, it's not. Sure, it's got that fame, charm, and awe factor, but in the grand cascade of waterfall heights, there are almost 500 others towering over Niagara. Take Angel Falls in Venezuela, for instance, more than 3,000 feet tall. But what sets Niagara Falls apart is the sheer volume of water pouring down, creating a breathtaking spectacle. Waterfalls, in general, don't usually flaunt massive water quantities. But Niagara is the exception. It's not just about the height, it's the splendid combo of colossal water flow and elevation that makes Niagara Falls a showstopper. Oh, and let's not forget speed. These might just be some of the fastest-moving waterfalls on our turf. Rewind to 18,000 years ago, Niagara Falls wasn't doing its thing back then. Nope, the joint was covered in ice sheets like a giant frosty blanket 1 to 2 miles thick. As those ice sheets made a southward shuffle, they sculpted the Great Lakes Basin, including the birth of the Niagara River. When those icy behemoths melted, cue the release of a colossal water surge into the basins. Alright, let's break down the water game. So, the water we sip on? It's kind of like a fossil, been hanging around for a while. Just a measly 1% gets a refresh each year, while the cool 99% is a hand-me-down from the ice sheets. The Niagara Peninsula? Well, it's been off the radar for a solid 12,500 years. When the ice melted, the water took a scenic route down, crafting what we now call the Niagara River, Lake Erie, and Lake Ontario. It was a slow dance, but eventually it carved cliffs and painted the masterpiece we know as Niagara Falls. Now let's talk color. Ever notice how the Niagara River rocks an amazing shade of green? That color spills the beans on the water's erosion game. Every minute, Niagara Falls unleashes a whopping 60 tons of dissolved minerals, teaming up with salt and finely ground rock. It's like Mother Nature's art palette creating a color spectacle. Folks in the US and Canada, well, over 1 million lucky souls tap into the Niagara River for a range of activities. Think fishing, snagging drinking water, throwing down some recreational vibes with swimming, boating, and bird watching. And let's not forget the power play. The first ever hydroelectric generating station flexed its muscles in the late 19th century, right by the falls. It was a genius move dishing out electricity. But there was a catch: the juice could only travel 300 feet. Enter Nikola Tesla, the maestro who tweaked things up. He cracked the code that electricity could go the distance with alternating current. Fast forward to today, and several power plants around Niagara Falls are pumping out over 2 million kilowatts of power. Now, that's what I call making waves. Alright, let me share another fascinating tidbit with you. 1969 wasn't the sole instance of Niagara Falls coming to a halt. Back in 1848, the falls experienced a pause. The water ceased its cascade for about 40 hours. At that time, the falls were already a popular attraction for tourists and a valuable energy source for locals. Understandably, panic ensued. Nature, in this case, was the culprit. Ice obstructed the Niagara River's source. It all began on March 29th when an observant American farmer, strolling before midnight, noticed the absence of the powerful roar of the falls. Rushing to the river's edge, he was met with a surprising sight: scarcely any water. This sudden stoppage caused disruptions. Factories and mills reliant on the water had to cease operations. Turtles wandered in confusion, and fish didn't survive. Some adventurous folks even ventured onto the river bottom, collecting small mementos. Then, on March 31st, a distant rumbling heralded a dramatic comeback. The noise grew closer and louder until a wall of water emerged, restoring one of the world's greatest attractions. The falls, magnificent and ultimately invincible, resumed their natural course, as they should. That wraps it up for today. If I satisfied your curiosity, give the video a thumbs up, share it with your friends, or, if you crave more, simply click on these videos and stay on the bright side.